Hi, I'm Arena. I was very interested in interviewing you today because there are claims by one of Vivienne Weinstocks' other patients, Steve McCain, that he has been a non-insulin requiring diabetic for over 4.5 years. He has had diagnosed and confirmed insulin-dependent diabetes. This is extremely impressive, although I'm very interested to hear about his story and to see what Vivienne's program is capable of, although I am a little skeptical about the homeopathy side of things. While studying science, however, I have done quite a few research assignments in diabetes and I have developed an understanding and passion for it. Given that homeopathy has a very bad reputation in Australia, why did you guys give it a go?
When he was diagnosed in January 2013, we left the hospital with what they had suggested for us to use as a program for food and insulin injections. The endocrinologist, I did ask her when we were leaving, was there anything else that we could actually use to help control sugar levels? And one of the things that she was happy to have us trial was being on homeopathy. So another person did suggest to me that Vivienne Weinstock had this type 1 diabetes trial already going, so we thought we would give it a go. And for by the April of 2013, we did come for our first appointment with Vivienne, and we found that within a short space of time, the remedies would make quite a difference to her sugar levels within 3 days of taking them.
Wow.
So we found that after a week or two, perhaps the sugar levels might rise, and some of them might go over 8. We'd come back to see Vivienne and have another consultation. She might change the remedy or the potency, and then again within about 3 or 4 days her sugar levels would drop again. So every time they were dropping, we needed to get back to the endocrinologist about those, and they would adjust the insulin doses that was on, so she was gradually coming down off the insulin. And it was quite obvious that the timing between taking a remedy and the reducing of the sugar levels, there wasn't really many other things. There was nothing else it could be put down to, and it kept happening repeatedly. So the proof was really in her results.
Wow, yeah. Well, given that he's been on exercise, nutrition, and supplemental programs, how can you tell that homeopathy has actually made a difference, not just those programs?
We basically have been on a similar diet the whole time since about April. So that has no grain, seed and nut, fats, oils, proteins, vegetables, and small amounts of fruits. It has that component to it, but it doesn't change a whole lot. And the amount of carbohydrates she has per meal are also quite restricted, but it's what suits matching to her insulin requirements. So that stays quite consistent. With the exercise, that's consistent for what an 11-year-old might do. And the only thing that really is changing is the homeopathy within that framework. And again, because the reduction of her sugar levels is so close, 3 or 4 days after taking a remedy change, again, it just, we don't think it's anything else. It's just that repeated reducing and controlling that seems to be, there's nothing else we can put it down to, because there's nothing else really changing.
So how long has she actually been on Vivienne's program, and what has she actually achieved from this homeopathy?
It's been since April 2013. And what would you say it's been achieved?
Well, I've been able to go to play dates and sleepovers and parties that my friends are at, and most other diabetics can't do that. But because of my stable blood sugars, I'm able to go to things that normal people are allowed to do.
Wow.
So it's made quite a big difference to our lives as a family with someone with a diabetes condition and within it, because we're able to predict what will happen in her day and night much more easily than in the first 3 months, the 4 months that she was diagnosed. Life wasn't predictable, and so it made it more difficult for school, for going to play dates, to all those things that an 11-year-old wants to do.
Yeah. So, can you explain to me the quality of life between her diagnosis and when she started to see Vivienne?
So between the diagnosis and up to when we started to see Vivienne, certainly we were following a program that the hospital gives to all type 1 diabetics. We did follow it very closely. We weighed food, we did everything according to how they were saying, but we still found that even though we may have replicated the same thing the day before, the next day we may have a completely different blood result. And those different fluctuations in blood results made it very frustrating because you couldn't then get on with the rest of the things you wanted to do in the day. So those fluctuations were happening a lot before we started Vivienne's program. When we started the program, those fluctuations, the spikes, the lows, they really weren't happening anymore after a month or two of being with Vivienne's program, and it just gave you peace of mind, gave me peace of mind as a parent to know that I could go and do things throughout the day without having some sort of medical emergency.
So these irregular readings, like, what sort of problems were they causing in your life?
The irregular readings, particularly if it was in the evening, by that stage you've checked your blood, you've taken your insulin, you've had a meal, and then around 8:30 or so you check again and see what your numbers were. Now by that time of day, in about half an hour or more, she's going to bed. If her readings were over 8, heading up to 9, and then again 2 hours later, so you take the readings again. If a diabetic's gone to bed with a high reading and they're not obviously doing any exercise through the night, they are going to stay with a high reading all night long, and it's the high readings for type 1s that really are detrimental to their body, their soft tissues, muscles, everything. So the aim for a type 1 is to keep your reading between 4 and 8 because that's where you're going to have a healthy life. And that was the most obvious that I can recall at this point, where really it made a big difference at the end of the day, that we weren't up for an extra hour after dinner trying to run around, burn up, dance, jump on the trampoline to burn up what she needed to do before we knew, okay, sugar levels are down, now you can go to sleep. But now she's really exhausted because she's 10 o'clock at night and she wants to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Rather than deal with sugar levels. It's a much happier, less frustrating lifestyle that I've got now.
So what sort of difference have you seen since being on Vivienne's program?
Well, I seem to be a lot healthier, that I'm not eating as much as I used to, because when I did, I felt maybe I shouldn't be eating this much because I'd be eating more than my teenage brother eats, which I felt really,
put him on a lot of weight
really weird.
Afterwards, didn't you?
And once that happened, we went on to Vivienne's diet and it seemed to slow down and everything went back to normal. And I managed to go to a friend's house and I would be able to eat some like fruit or berries or something, like nuts, and be okay because the blood sugars would be fine and it would all be okay. And it was a lot better than being on normal diet where I would have high blood sugars and then lows, which are really, really frustrating.
So what's the hardest thing about this program?
Probably being at parties or having to remember to take the homeopathy. But when you're at parties, you see everyone else eating lots of rubbish food and you think, maybe it's probably healthier for me to eat like this and not get high cholesterol and all that other things. And sometimes you have to be reminded to take your homeopathy, and sometimes you forget because like when you're at school you don't really remember. So that's probably the hardest.
What's your favourite food on the program?
It's probably my muffins.
Yeah?
My chocolate muffins. They have little raspberries on the top and they're very yummy. I like them a lot, yeah.
They sound pretty awesome. Do your friends want them as well? Do they always want to try them or? So.
Well, yeah, actually, a lot of my friends are interested in my food, and I have some other friends who are interested in my chips, and they really said they really like them, and my cookies as well. They also really like them. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Would you recommend this program for anyone else with type 1 diabetes? And
Yes,
why?
probably because you feel healthier, but then you also got good blood sugar readings and low insulin, so it seems a lot better lifestyle.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds like you've improved, which is something which isn't always achievable. Well, this has been truly eye-opening. Is there anything else you'd like to say in regards to the homeopathy?
I would say not only has it helped with her sugar levels, but generally her health is better than it was. Already had food intolerances before she was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic, and when we didn't know what those were, it would produce an asthmatic type cough. Once we found out what those were, that reduced, but every time she had some sort of bacterial or viral infection which went from throat to lungs, it would produce a cough which went on to be an asthmatic type wheeze. So we did need Ventolin and Flexitide puffers and that type of thing to control that at those points. And she would get those reactions probably 3 or 4 times a year. And I didn't notice until probably a year into the program with Vivienne that we hadn't had those cough and asthmatic type reactions happening as much. And what made me further realise was that I had checked the puffer's expiration dates, and we were beyond that, and so I thought, well, I can throw these away. So something has improved on her immune system level, that she can actually eat some of those foods that she couldn't have before and doesn't get those reactions. But also, when she does get a cold, she actually doesn't get the asthmatic type symptoms anymore, and we haven't need those medications, which has been great. Last year, I don't recall her having many sick days from school, probably about the average as any other child will be in a school environment. And I'd say that academically, 2014 was probably her best academic year yet. She actually achieved school awards that she had been attained to that she didn't get the year before. She also started a netball team, which she hadn't been doing in the year she got diagnosed, just because there was too many things to juggle. But last year she was in a netball team and they won their division, so that was another very helpful thing. So I think that she partakes in ballet classes, she does sport, academically doing fine, and health has actually improved. So there's been a lot of benefits throughout.
Yeah, she sounds incredibly healthy for an 11-year-old.
So I would put it down to the homeopathy actually changing her ability, I think, immune-wise as well, that she's just healthier overall.
Yeah.
So we've achieved a lot.
It's truly impacted your lifestyle, yeah. Yeah.
It has.
So this all sounds very nice, but what actual medical evidence do you have to say that the homeopathy is actually working?
When a diabetic is first diagnosed, there's 3 antibody scores that the blood tests are done with, and there's also another thing called a C-peptide score, and then whenever the type 1s go back in to have their 3 or 4 monthly checks, Children's Hospital, they have another blood test that's called an HbA1c. So there's all of these pathology tests that are done. When he was first diagnosed, we had results at that point. Also, when he turned up at the hospital on the day when she was diagnosed, her blood sugars were really high, so they were actually well off the scale of what they find for most type 1s on arrival. She was well up to, I think it was 33 for a blood sugar level, which was outrageous, but she was still standing and speaking and thankfully quite alert and fine. So the changes in the sugar levels are the biggest thing that the doctors will look at, and at the moment they're very pleased with her stability that she has between a 4 and 8. So that's one thing. So these HbA1c results have always been below the range that most diabetics will ever be able to achieve. So that highs have been around 5.3 to 5.5, and that's a pleasing result for the endocrinologists. What we've also been able to do is lower the antibody scores that are also a blood test that's done, and these levels for 2 out of 3 of those scores, it's now in non-diabetic range, which again is quite an achievement. And the one that hasn't yet come back to non-diabetic range is reducing and getting closer. The other result is C-peptide score, and initially this was a 0.2 range, and normal non-diabetic range needs to be around the 0.4 and above. So he's now got scores that are around the normal range as well. So there's been a lot of achievements in that area, which are pathology tests that the medical system use. Her insulin levels too, when she was first diagnosed in January 2013, her long-acting insulin that she took up to 16 units in the evening to control that for 24 hours. And there's other 2 short-acting insulins were up to an 8 or a 9 that she would have to take of units at breakfast, lunch and dinner, and those scores have rapidly come down. Now the long-acting one is down to 1 that she's taking in the evenings, and the short-acting ones she's between 1 and 2 units, and at times she's even been able to take none of the evening short-acting ones, so her amount of insulin that she's taking per 24 hours is very small as far as most diabetics are able to. So the long-term aim, we know that Steve McCain has been able to achieve to come off insulin. At this point we are close to that, and if we can work towards being off the insulin altogether, that just means that she isn't having to give herself the insulin injections anymore, which again makes life so much more easy for a diabetic. She'll still need to test her sugar levels from time to time when she feels that they're high, and when we need to know it's still controlled, so we won't stop doing that. But all of these things, we would also check with the endocrinologists that we're able to do this. If we got to a point where the insulin wasn't required, then they'll say come off it because they're going to be making too many low blood sugar levels. So we'll just keep feeding back to the doctors.
This has truly been quite groundbreaking, and it's really interesting to see how these homeopathy has impacted your life and what you've actually achieved by using it. So good luck, and I'd really love to hear about what happens and how you guys go in future. Yeah.